settings around the city of Marrakesh for off-the-record, frank, and uninhibited discussions. South-South cooperation, the future of multilateralism, international financial architecture, economic nationalism, democracy in crisis, technology for sustainable transition, BRICS and NATO enlargements, global governance, and education. Over 40 emerging leaders from across the Atlantic, selected from thousands of applicants, will join the conference after a 3-day tailor-made leadership and networking program. To know more, visit our dedicated website, atlanticdialogues.org. Under the high patronage of His Majesty King Mohammed VI, the Policy Center for the New South is organizing the 12th edition of the Atlantic Dialogues Conference, its annual high-level gathering of influential public and private sector leaders from around the Atlantic Basin, for open, candid, and informal discussions on cross-regional and cross-sectoral issues. Over 400 high-level participants will gather from more than 80 countries to delve into this year's theme, a more assertive Atlantic, its meaning for the world. Same as every edition, the conference will allow for different session formats. Over 10 plenary sessions and 380 talks will be on the record, available for streaming on the Policy Center's website. 2 night owl sessions and over 15 thematic breakout dinners will be held in more intimate settings around the city of Marrakesh for off-the-record, frank, and uninhibited discussions.
And in 2 minutes, please start making your way to the ballroom.
International financial architecture, economic nationalism, democracy in crisis, tech education. Over 40 emerging leaders from across the Atlantic.
Ladies and gentlemen, the follow-up town hall session will begin in 1 minute. Please start making your way to the ballroom. Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. This session will now begin. Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. This session will now begin. Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. This session will now begin. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Nick Gowing for our follow-up town hall.
It is very much a follow-up from yesterday. And for those of you who weren't here, the aim was to get an idea of what's on your mind. Could I have the lights up, please, in the room? The idea was to get, right at the beginning of the conference yesterday, an idea of what's on your minds, not what's dictated to you by those who've set up the agenda for this conference. And we had 36 of you speaking in 42 minutes. That shows the immense commitment that there was right from the get-go. So we thought we would do a follow-up. Obviously, the conference doesn't end until tomorrow, to find out what your feelings are about what you've been hearing, where things are going, and what still needs to be on the agenda. Now, Sarah from the center actually was looking through and listening and has logged a lot of the stuff that came out yesterday. And what emerged was starting on collaboration, through to confrontation, through to discipline, through to challenges, added to which we now need to work out what is achievable. We're only doing this for half an hour, but I'd like to start on this in a moment with doing a word cloud with you. So if you can get your handsets out, we'll do that in a minute. But in the minute before we do that, I want to show you a remarkable bit of video. Remember what we discussed yesterday about fake information and what you can believe. I'm going to show you what happened during President Putin's press conference yesterday when he was confronted by a double. Play the tape.
Я студент и учусь в Санкт-Петербургском государственном университете. Хочу спросить, правда ли, что у вас много двойников? И еще, как вы относитесь к тем опасностям, которые несет в нашу жизнь искусственный интеллект и нейросети? Спасибо.
Гражданин из Санкт-Петербурга не представился.
Да. Вот я смотрю, вы можете быть на меня похожи и говорите моим голосом. Но я подумал и решил, что похожим на себя и говорить моим голосом должен только один человек. И этим человеком буду я. Вот так один из наших деятелей шутил когда-то. Вот. Но что касается искусственного интеллекта, да, вот это мой первый двойник, кстати сказать.
That was 24 hours ago, and this time yesterday we were talking about how things can be faked. What you saw there is someone who looks and sounds like Putin. There's obviously a much deeper agenda here, but it happened in an official press conference organized by the Kremlin, which I have to say lasted 4 hours. So that was only 1 minute of 4 hours. But I show it to you because we were talking about it yesterday, and now it's become a central issue. Who do we believe? A prime minister, a foreign minister, the corporate leader of a big company? When we see them on television, when you see them on YouTube, do you believe, should you believe, they are who they say they are? These are deeply disturbing times. Now, what I want to do is ask you to go onto your machines and give me an idea of the one word. We want bold ideas here. We want bold ideas about the kind of direction of travel we are now moving in, given the enormity of disruption that is taking place. Let's do a word cloud. I'll give you 30 seconds to do that. It's not active at the moment. Ça marche pas en ce moment. There's no activity. All right, well, look, let's try again. Can we work it out? We did test it just before you all came in, and it did seem to be working. But one of the words that came through yesterday, which came up in the pre-discussion, was trust. And I'm quoting to you the kind of things that you wanted to put on the agenda. Now, what I'd like to do is, first of all, go back to Carmen. Where are you, Carmen? Here. Yeah, a microphone, because Carmen, until last Saturday, was a member of the Argentinian parliament. And she said right at the beginning of yesterday, this is what I faced, and this is the reality of what's happened in Argentina. What have you seen in the last 24 hours which gives you hope that people understand what you've been through? Camila, yeah.
I've seen a lot of engagement and that everyone's very aware of the dangers of what we do wrong, but I haven't seen as much as I wish, and I'm happy that you just brought it up about not just artificial intelligence, but technology and disintermediation, how we actually take pride in getting things directly from the source without having an intermediary, and the risks about not having an intermediary too. The risk about fake news, deep fake, part of, as well as another thing that's been quite off the agenda so far, which is poverty, and especially childhood and family issues. And just to make it on a more optimistic note, I think there's a lot that is going on in the world that's good and that's right. And I would like to hear more about that. The good things that we're doing, good policies,
the positives.
Things that are actually happening that are good. Because I'm so tired of the Argentine energy. It's so negative. Everything seems to be going down south forever for the last 70 years, that I would also like to ask to talk about what is going well and right, what's happening, what are the good things and good policies that we're actually doing in our countries that are helping our childhood, our people leave poverty, and the good things that we're doing. I'm sure there's a lot here in this
all right, so we'd like to hear about, thank you, Camilla, thank you. So we want to hear about positives. Who was it who was talking to me earlier about AI? Ayola, where are you? Are you here? Other side, there, please. Just introduce yourself, because we were talking about AI and you said you wanted to put something on the agenda.
Yeah, my name is Ala Kulkaila. I'm a Mason Fellow and a student at Harvard University and one of the emerging leaders this cohort. Two things, in fact. The first was like technology and different modes of ruling, like systems of ruling, as well as governance. And the second thing is like democratization of access that's happening due to technology. And if you give me a moment, I'd like to reflect on something relevant also to the media and what has been happening the past period, where there has been, during the last war, there has been efforts to control the narrative. And in the meantime, we have seen lots of change in Gen Z ability to detect false information and to post and to verify. So this questions a lot about verification. This questions about the modes of governance that we need to implement. And it also questions the idea of how we need to be governing with these technologies. And it's inevitable to be talking about democracy, and we don't account for technology and AI in particular, because it's democratizing access on a huge level.
What did you think of that bit of video?
I think it's important to be thinking of how we can control for that. And what are the modes of governance back again. But I also see lots of benefits for the emergence of these technologies, and it's how it can pave the road to Industry 5.0 on that front. So like, for instance, New Orleans today has embraced a new AI for their systems in calls dispatch and translations right away. We're having this in energy. We're having this on different levels. So I do understand the risks, and they are very important to be considered, but it's important to consider the benefits.
Pass the microphone forward. Who else would like to come in as well? Please, microphones all over the place, so please go ahead and keep your remarks short. We want to stimulate about being bold, about getting new ideas into the mind. Remember, I talked about yesterday creating new mind muscle.
Sure. Laura Reina from Mexico. I work in the intersection of technology and public policy. So the crisis of democracy is also a crisis of trust, as you just mentioned. And one of the things that has been around in my mind in particular is that we have spoken about the role of technology on politics, but we haven't been speaking, or I would love the thoughts on the role of technologists in public policy. In the sense that a lot of our politicians don't understand the main technologies that are changing today, like from deepfakes, from AI, but technology is not only AI, has shaped the world along through time. Books are a technology. So I would love to see more political leadership interested in the future of harnessing technology and the fourth industrial revolution, and mainly because the conversations around AI, for example, right now are very Brussels, DC centered, and I think that the New South should have an agenda in that sense.
All right, thank you. That's a very interesting development here. Democracy, gatekeepers. Gatekeepers of so much. Over here, please.
Hello, my name is Francisco Cordova. I'm an emerging leader from Colombia, and I'm also run an artificial intelligence startup in London. I think there's a great opportunity that everyone is saying the South should be on the table. Well, there's one way, and it's that every country around the world should develop their own ChatGPT. How to do it? You use one of the open source large language models available, and then you train it with your local data, with your local knowledge. So if you're in Nigeria, you can train with Yoruba and other languages in regions. So in that way, by owning the technology and not being dependent as we have been in the past with our data, then you can develop a lot of services and technology around. So the government can support that process by buying GPUs, which are the machines to train the models, but afterwards you can decentralize the systems by using universities and other entities to make them better. So at the end, build your own ChatGPT to your own country should be the way.
Right. It's exactly keep the microphone. It's exactly 1 year and 15 days since ChatGPT became a public issue, suddenly on November the 30th. What is your reflection just over a year on about the kind of impact that has made and the kind of boldness with which it's got to be tackled now?
So I published a book in 2018 talking about the future of AI.
Did you predict ChatGPT?
I worked with the initial versions, actually. But my point is, we were so surprised about the advance of ChatGPT. Everyone in AI of the Transformers technology, which is the basis for ChatGPT, was so surprised of the velocity. But check this. When they launched this, then open source alternatives to ChatGPT arise. And now, for example, the French, they released the Mistral, 7 billion, which is an amazing technology that is competing with ChatGPT 3.5. So right now, the future is open source technology that could be embraced by every country.
Right. I'd put to you that ChatGPT is a metaphor for what all of us, all of you are facing. It's the speed of change. And that's why I put that up about Putin yesterday, showing he even seemed to be nonplussed by the fact that people could replicate him. You've got the microphone.
My name is Ana Pinto. I'm professor at Nova University in Lisbon, and there is something that is really worrying for me, that is critical thinking, and it's deeply related with intelligence, with artificial intelligence, and the question of ChatGPT. We are not promoting critical thinking in our students and in our citizens, and that has a huge impact on democracy. No one contests that image of Putin speaking what he was speaking. When I see a news or a TikTok video, I do not contest, my daughter do not contest the truth or the liability of that information. And what I think we don't have instruments is to promote this in everyday living.
How do we promote it?
I think we must put people thinking and not copy-paste from ChatGPT. Why do I have to question ChatGPT on a very simple question when I should look for that question and have the work of thinking and making a reflection about this?
But just to be clear, how do you promote thinking about this?
Put people together debating with each other.
Like this?
Exactly. And do not replicate the message that everyone says, and at the same time I'm going out of this room and I simply replicate what I listen to anyone without checking if that makes part of my mind. And I do not go to my students without saying, you must contest me, you must debate me, you do not need to agree with me. And that is something that I think it's really important for today and for future
Thank you very much indeed. Who's over here? Get the microphone, and I'm going to the lady over here first.
Hello, good morning. My
Afternoon.
name is Estelle Youssoufa. Good afternoon, you're right.
Good evening, actually.
Estelle Youssoufa, I'm a member of the French Parliament. So I wanted to answer one of the points that has been raised regarding how politicians can actually work on the new technologies. The velocity of change is so faster than the legislative pace and the political pace. We are outsmart, we are outdated by technology. By the time one law reaches the parliament, it's already very late in terms of technology, and I think that that's something that has to be taken into consideration. The biggest tension, because we've been discussing in the French Parliament the EU laws regarding digital rights and so on and so forth, one of the biggest tension is the core business of the new technologies is that the client is the data. Basically, we are mined as citizens. We are giving our data. We are the currency and the mineral of this industry. You have to relinquish your information to build a business that is supposedly helping you. And I think that that tension, especially for Europeans, is key. Because you want to be able to protect anonymity and your data, but being able not to be outside that new technology, and that's the biggest tension for the lawmakers.
As you've taken the floor, I asked Camilla to speak again after what she said yesterday, having lost her seat in the Argentine parliament, simply because I then went and asked the question yesterday, who would like to be a politician? Only one hand went up. In other words, is this all getting too much for the political class?
Am I supposed to answer?
Of course. It's your privilege.
I think it's our duty and our privilege to try.
Okay. Thank you. Right, over there, please.
Landry Signé, Policy Center for the New South, and I'm also author of Africa's Fourth Industrial Revolution, released by Cambridge University Press, where I discuss many of the points that we are having now. So a couple of dimensions. Technology, especially artificial intelligence, is like electricity. So whether we like it or no, it is there. They will continue to evolve. So the idea is how can we better govern tech? And there are two key challenges, the pacing challenges, so the speed, and the coordination challenges, which is the multiplicity of players. And to fix that, agility is important, and agile governance. So, of course, I can't further elaborate, but I want to be certain that others also have the opportunity to speak. But those, I just came back from the World Economic Forum Agile Governance Summit. It is not just, the challenge is not just about the public sector unable to keep with the pacing. In Chatham House conversation, even the private sector, even self-governance, even industry governance is hard. They cannot self-govern.
So what's the big challenge? Put it in 2 sentences, then we can move on.
Coordination, pacing. Pacing, go quickly, not just for public sector, even the private sector cannot self-govern. And coordination, too many actors to be able to regulate the way it was done in the past, so it will require agility.
Thank you. Pass the microphone over your right shoulder, please. No, to the lady behind you.
Oh, I can go now? Hi, good evening. Roxy, U.S. elected official and also an emerging leader with Atlantic Dialogues. 2 things. First thing is, we spend a lot of time talking about the implications of a Trump presidency on the global South. But we don't spend enough time talking about the countries that essentially feel like they would benefit from a Trump presidency versus a Biden presidency. So there's 2 things there. Then the second part, when you talk about technology and talk about governance around regulation, because I'm also a technology entrepreneur, I don't necessarily think, I'm gonna invite another perspective. I don't necessarily think the conversation should be centered around regulation around technology, but more so, how are you thinking about, as the Global South, working with private sector companies to make sure that you're not exacerbating inequity in data sets as it pertains to all of your markets? Because you can govern technology all you want and establish regulation, but if your data sets for public engagement are not included, it doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, the problem will still be exacerbated because you're competing with access to scale, and that's still coming from the Western
Let me
region.
just put one thing to you. I mean,
Sure.
Trump may be elected in 11 months' time.
Absolutely,
But
he
that
might
word
be.
there, pacing, the need to be not just agile, but incredibly quick. And that's why I showed you that
Of
thing from
course.
yesterday. I was shocked looking at it online last night, realizing that what we've been talking about 6 hours earlier was already becoming a problem, even for the Russian president, simply because no one really understood the speed
Absolutely.
at which change is now taking place.
Absolutely. Great points.
Okay, all right. Please, who's got the microphone? Yeah. And then I'll come to you.
Well, I'm Senem Florencia from Spain. It's not that I want to spoil the conversation, but I want just to raise the point that democracy is not only voting. Democracy, you need to create a culture, you need to create a democratic society, a democratic mentality, democratic education, and this is much more difficult. So, regarding the new technologies, of course we have to start regulating it as the European Parliament has started doing, and I hope it will spread to all over places. But this is not the only thing. We have to, for example, we know the roots of some of the reactions against the inequalities, social problems, frustrations. We have to know that in order to have democracy as a political system, we have to create democratic societies.
Remember what Camilla said right at the beginning, which is why I asked her to start, about the need to be positive and see positive opportunities here. Do you see anything positive in what you've just said?
Yes, because that is a line that have to conduct this in which kind of policies to choose at any moment.
Okay, thank you. Someone, there are hands going up everywhere, so I'll come here first.
Hi, Igor Malgeri, International Affairs Manager from Italy and one of the emerging leaders. I'm going to be very brief. I just wanted to point out, I mean, like here we are talking about like how the crazy impact of about artificial intelligence and other breakthrough technologies, but we are treating them like as public goods. I mean, like how these are going to impact the democracy, the social growth, the global south. I mean, but these technologies are privately developed, and as technologies are international, and they are going to be spread out like very easily and like without control. And we don't need to be mistaken that like if you have public access to something, it means that it's a public good. It's still, I mean, like AI, it's simply a good, like a code that like gives a result. So I mean, like if the code is not public, the good is not public. So I mean, we really don't need to put the expectations on that.
Keep your framing around the Atlantic Basin and Africa. I'm going to the Technology in Africa dinner tonight, so I'll be interested where that goes. But I'm just trying to keep you focused, not just on democracy, but on specific issues where achievements can happen.
Yes, Jalal Shura from Morocco. Well, I think that we are now witnessing the emergence of AI. This is just the beginning. And just when the Bible said that God created the man in his own image, I'm wondering if we created AI to our own image, and what is going to happen if AI starts to challenge us, to tell us things that were unexpected, because what AI is actually doing things that are not really deterministic, and that's in a way crazy. So is it going to happen that we'll accept that AI is challenging us just like Elon Musk was fearing?
Just before you sit down, how would you feel if an avatar appeared on that screen showing someone looking like you, asking a question like that, but not asking it in the way that you've just put it?
I would be frightened, and I would maybe try to think in ways of how to actually give some guarantees to people that that's not me. I don't know how to do that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's why this is so critical.
Absolutely.
Not just because of the technology, but because of who it happened to, who believes he can control everything.
Thank you, Nick. I'm Vemba Dizolele, CSIS, Washington, D.C. I want to go back to some fundamentals that we've just skirted about. And that is, on our last discussion, we talked a lot about democracy, democracy, democracy. I was surprised that we didn't really talk much about governance.
There has been a big session this afternoon on democracy.
I was in the session, yes. So the part of the gap is we are very Euro-centered when it comes to democracy. There's a model that we continue insisting on that is not reflective of the realities of millions of people, particularly in the African side of the Atlantic Basin. So today, I sit in a lot of meetings about the reconstruction of Ukraine. The war is still ongoing, but there are already billions of dollars that are being earmarked for the reconstruction of Ukraine. But yet, in a place like Niger, we're still insisting on democracy when everything is in the red. All the indicators are in the red. So my point is, we need to stop being so reactionary when we talk about Singapore, when we talk about China. There gotta be something those countries are doing in addressing public service delivery, in upholding the social contract.
Thank you. Okay, over there, please. Got 6 minutes to run. The lady at the back? Is there a lady at the back who's got the microphone? Who's got the microphone? Oh,
I'm not the lady in the
I
back.
pointed it up there. Okay, go ahead, and then the microphone will move up there, please.
Well, thank you. I'm sorry I'm not the lady in the back. I will invoke Chatham House rule. I'm the ambassador of Brazil. I'm very pleased to be here. And then
you can't invoke the Chatham House.
Asylum seekers and الرداءة مأسسة الرداءة.
Access to education, access to health, access to clever solutions quickly on the tip of on your computer. It's life-changing and it's not necessarily bad. I don't think we should lock ourselves into this very comfortable, clever bubble and not look to the world outside us. There are opportunities, very positive ones, to be derived from this new, brave new world. Thank you.
But it's shocking if you, whether as the ambassador personally or the ambassador representing your country, suddenly found someone had written a telegram in your name, but you didn't actually have anything to do with writing it.
But that's the trick. That's where the inequality plays. I would know it was not written by one of us.
But would Brasilia?
They would, yes. I mean, I shouldn't be saying those things, but we run a test sending cables written by AI. Everybody knew right away. Oh, this is
so they
AI.
can identify it like a fingerprint.
We know how we write.
Right, we'll test it one day, please. And let's get the microphone to the lady at the back. If she has a microphone. I'll come to you immediately then.
Thank you very much. I actually wanted to build
Just tell us who you are, will you?
Sorry, I'm Claire Furbish with Foreign Policy Magazine in Washington, D.C. I actually wanted to build on some things that have been said over the past day or two by Kim Dozier, Hung Tran, as well as a man whose name I'm forgetting now. And it's about, the fact that over the past 15 years, we in the media industry have seen our way of delivering news, both financially and in terms of how we get it to people, fundamentally disrupted, right? Almost overnight, with social media platforms, we started having to put our articles out for free and on the internet as well, right? Now, what we've seen is that with people getting articles on social media platforms, right, and with us having to put them out with ad revenue as a primary financial incentive, what we're incentivized to give people is what they want to click on, not what they need to hear. We've also seen our bottom lines really fundamentally undermined.
Quite apart from the anxiety, though, of the media business, and let's not get hung up on that.
Absolutely.
What about the fact that vast numbers of people via their phone can now get information in a way which they couldn't before?
Absolutely, completely, right? And with the algorithms also giving people only the news that they want to hear, only reinforcing their existing beliefs, this has fundamentally, not only has this given rise to misinformation, but it's also spurred political divisions within our countries.
All right, do you mind if we leave it there, because we've only got 3 minutes left?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Do you mind? Sorry. Please, here.
Thank you. My name is Maureen Chibo. I publish Real News Magazine online. I'm concerned about information integrity. And we are talking about trust. And yesterday, when we were talking, there was mention about verifying information. But I want us to think about who monitors the fact checkers, because sometimes you see some of these legacy media, they own some fact-checking mechanisms, and then they push out wrong information and then fact-check it and also corroborate or dismiss. So who checks the fact-checker to make sure that the information that is pushed out to the public is correct? So I want us here to consider an independent way of body that could be checking the fact checkers, because it's happened. The legacy media, as we know them, they own these big organizations that verify information, but they end up distorting the information. And if you are in the know, because I'm in the media, so I have seen that happen, and it happened recently in my own country, Nigeria. And we are wondering how come, who did it?
I just mentioned I happened to work for the BBC some time ago, but the BBC has BBC Verify. It's a very costly, disciplined business now, but it is very expensive because you've got to essentially do so much checking. So can I just take that as put on the agenda, please? The lady there. Oh, you don't have the microphone. All right, quickly if you can, and then the lady here.
Rabia Muhtar, Policy Center for the New South. This is a great discussion. It's a needed discussion. However, there are many other challenges that we need to put on the table.
How long have you got?
I have 1 minute, half a minute, 30
yes,
seconds.
half a minute.
The food and agriculture system, food security, water security, energy security, access, is in a desperate need for reform. We need to talk about that because the food and agriculture system has contributed tremendously to carbon emission, to methane emission, to pollution. But it's part of the solution. It's the low-hanging fruit that we must reform. And I think that discussion has been ignored. Soil is the foundation for food security, water quality. Those discussions, and by the way, finally, the world has awakened that soil is a carbon sink. We must talk about this. It's been ignored, it's been put in the back burner, and there are urgent need to reform, transform the food and agriculture system.
Right, to the lady at the front. Your center needs to put it on the agenda then.
Thank you. My name is Halima and I'm a researcher. I currently work on issues of digital safety, but back in 2009 I was investigating the transformation of communication models in the digital age. So it was a bit of a preface to AI. Just to comment on what Mr. Ambassador said, I think, yeah, AI is here, that ship has already sailed, but we have to be cautious, have to brace for impact. We're not even discussing AI now, we're discussing consciousness and the concept of a distinct consciousness evolving. So I think we have to be extremely, extremely cautious.
That's a fascinating phrase you've used, brace for impact, which raises the question, what kind of impact? I'm almost out of time, but there's time for one more voice here, please.
Good evening. My name is Robert van Eert. I'm also with the Emerging Leaders Program. Quick question for the room. We've had coup d'etats in Burkina, Chad, Gabon, Guinea, Mali, Niger, and Sudan. What is the responsibility of neighboring countries, of regional economic communities, and of the Africa Union, if any? Thank you.
All right. Does anyone urgently want to come in with a big idea? One idea here, then I'm going to close the floor for the moment.
I don't know if it's an idea or not. Yunus Abuyu from the United Nations, just to comment on the Luddite remark. I don't think it's the issue of AI or not AI, to trust it or not trust it. The question, do we trust humans to do the right thing with AI? That's the problem. So I think the history of humanity has shown us that we make bad decisions with probably good things. So the issue is, do we trust ourselves with this?
Okay, let's pause now because it's time for the next session and we're running a little over. But for me, watching that thing with Putin yesterday, if someone looking like Putin, even if he was a St. Petersburg student, sat in a studio and started talking to me as a main presenter, I would have to assume that he is who he says he is. The question is, when someone phones you, when someone contacts you, do you know who it is? This is why I come back to that phrase which you used about what is now facing us all. And these are the big ideas we've tried to put on the agenda in this last half hour. Tomorrow we'll be doing the same thing with emerging leaders, and my question for them is, when are you going to emerge? It seems we actually need you. So have some answers for me tomorrow, please. Thank you very much indeed, everybody.
Ladies and gentlemen, the 7th plenary session, Brain Drain and the Global Scramble for Talent, will now begin. Ladies and gentlemen, please remain seated. The session will begin now.
The concept of brain drain pertains to migration economics and the international competition for talent. Since the 1960s, it has evolved into a developmental concern for both developing countries sending migrants and developed countries receiving them. When considering the potential advantages of skilled migration, such as the diaspora's role in facilitating knowledge and technology transfer, a perspective of brain gain emerges. In the current landscape of technological shifts,